We are learning more about the police response during the 2022 mass shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde.
And today, Attorney General Merrick Garland called it a failure that should not have happened. 19 students, 2 teachers were killed. The 610-page report cited critical failures in leadership by law enforcement officers who rushed to the scene.
Joining us now is investigator Robert Arnold, who has covered the shooting extensively. And Robert, you were in Uvalde within hours of the shooting. Yeah. You've been going through this report. What's the biggest takeaway for you?
The way the report stated how the error was made almost immediately, that officers moved from an active shooter response to a barricaded suspect response. And the reason I say that is because an active shooter response means you keep going. You do not stop until that shooter is in custody. A barricaded suspect gives law enforcement a little more time. Okay, this threat is now contained. We can step back a minute and try and come up with a strategy to end this more safely. And the report states they are not sure why that happened, since dispatchers were still telling officers in that hallway they were getting 911 calls, they were getting reports, they were hearing gunshots from in that classroom. But they say moving from that active shooter response to that barricaded suspect caused such a stuttered response. It was a problem. In fact, they say that the Uvalde ISD police chief, Pete Arredondo, didn't take incident command. So you now have no incident command. You have poor communication. That caused even more confusion for the officers responding, who were confused. Okay, is this a barricaded suspect? Is this an active shooter? What is exactly going on here? And to me, the biggest takeaway was when the Attorney General answered a specific question about had accepted active shooter protocols been followed that day, would you have had a different outcome? And this was his response.
The law enforcement agencies followed generally accepted practices in an active shooter situation and gone right after the shooter to stop him. Lives would have been saved and people would have survived.
Wow. So now that we hear this report, will that lead to any charges or anything different that we've been seeing?
Not from the Department of Justice. As a matter of fact, that was one thing that Attorney General Garland spoke to. There's no evidence of a federal crime here, so this is not their jurisdiction. Their job was to provide an outside independent evaluation of the police response. However, the district attorney in Uvalde says that an ongoing investigation has not been completed yet, and once that's complete, she will present the findings to a grand jury to decide if any charges may come from this.
The Attorney General also talked about already established active shooter protocols. So what exactly are the lessons that should be learned here?
So what the talk was about, making sure that everybody truly understands how to respond to an active shooter protocol. You can have all these different agencies go through the training, but unless you have this coordinated, dedicated effort. In fact, we spoke to a retired Secret Service agent, Mike Matranga, who not only is a retired Secret Service agent, but also was the former head of safety and security for Texas City ISD. And he says that this has to be ingrained all the way down to the local level, the rural level, that you have to have a very strong, established response to this type of situation, or it just leads to chaos. And this is what Matranga had to say.
We have to start focusing on planning, operations, communications, designating who's in charge, identifying who's your primary responder, who's your secondary responder, what the difference of those two are, what communications platform you're communicating on. Where's your staging area, whether it be medical or law enforcement? Where is your casualty collection points? Where are your tactical, what's your tactical 12 o'clock designation? That all needs to be understood, not only at the campus level, but amongst the responding agencies, whether it be one responding agency or 400.
So you never know really who's going to respond. So what he's saying is that everyone needs to have the same consistency in training. So whoever's responding
but you
knows
should know
what
who's
to do.
Going to respond. That's
right.
The other thing that he is saying, that you have to have that established. Okay, you're first, you're second, you're third. This is where you go. If this happens, you go here.
So
you do
no
this.
Time
right.
In
so there's none of this confusion about okay, who's in charge, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. So that should all be decided and drilled over and over again. Matter of fact, since Uvalde, Texas has passed laws specifically addressed to those shortcomings we saw in the Robb Elementary response, one of which is now every peace officer has to have 16 hours of active shooter training at least every 2 years. That's mandated now. Also in rural counties, which makes up the majority of the state, counties with a population of under 350,000, you have to have these semi-annual meetings where first responders, law enforcement have to get together and come up with very clear, concise plans as to what is going to happen if there is an active shooter response in our area.
So there's no room for error.
Right, because you had all these agencies respond, close to 400 officers, federal, state, and local, all responded to Robb Elementary, but none had trained together.
Yeah.
So they didn't know who was going to do what.
Correct.
Yeah, boy, a tragedy that we wish had never happened, but hopefully something can be learned
Yeah,
from it.
changes.
Yeah. All right, Robert, thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Robert.